In this presentation, I will discuss the medieval composer Rambo de Vaqueras. Not much is known about this man, but he did play an important role in the history of music. He's often referred to as a troubadour, which means he was a composer and poet during the Middle Ages. He liked to take poems and set them to music, much like the people we study in music history. Born in 1180, he played a vital role in creating music for the Middle Ages. His name suggests that he was from Vaqueras, which is a small commune in southeastern France, very close to the very large city of Orange, France. Here's a pic of Vaqueras, which gives us an idea of how it looked. Also, Tim V from TripAdvisor recommends going for a nice wine tasting if you happen to be in Vaqueras. There are 33 known songs that he has created, but only 7 or 8 of those songs he created have survived. His most popular song is called Calanda Maya, which we'll get to later, and it's considered one of the best examples of a troubadour song. He spent most of his life as a court poet, creating poetry and music alike. It wasn't until later in life where he became part of the Fourth Crusade. This was partly due to the fact that he was a close friend with the leader of the Fourth Crusade, Boniface of Montferrat. Vaqueras was a member of the minor nobility in his times. He was considered to be a knight while serving in the Fourth Crusade. He obviously wasn't poor if he was friends with the leader of the Fourth Crusade. Here is an accurate depiction of the battles of the Fourth Crusades. We can see that soldiers have Rambo put in a corner right here. Isn't that interesting? This is also another clip I found from the Discovery Channel. Just so fascinating. Well, how he became a knight was that he protected his friend and leader of the crusade, Boniface of Montferrat, with his shield during a battle at Messina, and that's how he was crowned as a knight. Some more interesting information is that he was the subject of a drama written in 1922 about an exaggerated image of a poet who was in love with a daughter of a leader, and at the end he comes back from battle to die in his lover's arms. Isn't that just so tragic? It's widely thought that he died with his friend and leader of the Crusades during a battle on September 4th, 1207. One of his most popular works was a multilingual poem where he used French, Italian, Portuguese, Gascon, and his own language, Provençal, in one poem. Also, one of his most important writings was called The Epic Letter, focused on the politics of the Latin Empire, which seemed to have a lasting effect on him if he wanted to join the Fourth Crusade. Also, like I said earlier, being very close friends with Boniface probably influenced his writings quite a bit, especially being around this huge military influence. Now on to musical genres. Right here we have Ars Antiqua, which was one of the genres he mainly composed in. In music history, we talked about Ars Nova, which is the complete opposite of what Ars Antiqua was. Since Ars Nova means new art or new style, or just new stuff in general, Ars Antiqua refers to the Middle Age style and everything about the Middle Age. Usually the term Ars Antiqua is restricted to sacred or polyphonic music. So right here we have Ars Nova. Boom, it's the opposite. Remember that. Another musical genre we have is tourniémen. This is a type of lyrical debate song between a bunch of different singers or poets. It'd sort of be like if Beyonce was featuring Kanye West, Jay-Z, and a bunch of other rappers on one song, and they were all like debating, like we have Donald and Hillary right here. Usually poets would pose a question within the song or poem, and another poet would answer the question within the song. Vaqueras was the first guy to have this debate-type song between multiple people. He is credited to creating the genre tourniémen. Some other genres he wrote were cansos, tensos, descorts, and estampidas. The estampida is very important because his most important work, Calanda Maya, was actually in the genre of an estampida. The estampida is just a medieval dance in musical form consisting of a bunch of repeated sections. With many of his musical works being lost throughout history, only a few have survived. One of his most important works is named Calanda Maya, as I mentioned earlier. This piece feels like it's in 6/8 or a 3 pattern. The song is actually considered to be a love song to the daughter of his patron. He talks about how beautiful, perfect, and noble this woman is, and talks about the love he has for her. However, the girl in the song doesn't like him back. He got friend-zoned, basically. This piece goes along with a lot of other pieces that he wrote because it has to do with courtly love, which is something that many troubadours wrote about in their pieces and poems. The problem with the recordings and scores of today's Calanda Maya is that this piece was transmitted through word of mouth, and not through writing, which means It's possible and very likely that this piece is different now than how it was meant to be back then. Let's take a listen to Kalenda Maya. Wow. Here comes my favorite part. Ooh. Ooh, here it comes. Ooh. Okay, we get the idea. This right here is actually the notation for Kalenda Maya. You can barely read it, but that's what people were looking off when they were trying to play this song. Many of these troubadour songs have a bunch of different melodic variations and rhythm variations. This is a very huge problem when it comes to researching these troubadour songs, because someone could not find the definite original version, or a version in which has the root for all the other works. For example, his Kalenda Maya was written down almost 100 years after it was created, through being orally transmitted. This means someone had to keep passing it down over generations. This is a recipe for disaster in keeping it close to the original. Another problem that we researchers go through is that the performers of the piece will take creative liberties when performing these tunes, and with no score to go off of, it's hard to tell what's supposed to be there and what's not. The second piece of music which I found interesting was No Magrari Verns, which is an instapida, which included the instruments a viele arquette, citara, dulcimer, and various percussion instruments. I chose this song because it shows a different side of Rambo's style. This piece also feels like it could be in 6/8, just like the Kalenda Maya. However, this piece would not be considered in the genre of Turniamen, which is the debates thing I talked about earlier. Instead, this piece would be in the genre of instapidas, just like some of the music he was influenced by. An instapida is just an extremely long song that has up to 12 stanzas, all with different music, but all with distinct phrases, just like I mentioned earlier. Just like most of his pieces, this piece is also about love and many tragic things that all troubadours wrote about at the time. This piece was based off of one of the poems he wrote, which was the title of the piece. This piece also talks about the Fourth Crusade that he was in. Let's take a listen. Okay, and we get the idea once again. It's hard to give him his own distinct musical style because there weren't many people that were like him during his time. For the most part, he used monophony, polyphony in his music, and he was also close friends with the leader of the Fourth Crusade, like I said earlier. He was employed to do musical and poetic activities for the leader and his friend Boniface, and he was a Frenchman in Italy. All of these things contributed to his distinct style, which in one sentence could be summed up as many influences into one distinct style. He liked to take other styles that were already a thing at the time and apply things that really mattered to him to create his own work. Also, you have to think about his background, which is of the minor nobility and being knighted, and also fighting in this crusade, which could all have influenced his style, and I'm sure it did. The text of his poems were mainly about love and tragedy and fighting within the crusades and such. His music seems very straightforward, prominent, and strong. The reason it's so hard to give him his own musical style is because he was part of the movement called the Troubadours, and all these troubadours sounded very similar when they were writing their music. In conclusion, I think my composer is so important to the history of music due to many factors. He created his own genre of poetry and song, the Turniamen, which I think is a great feat to accomplish. He was very influential in his musical writing, especially with the creation of Kalenda Maya. Also, his fusion of French and Italian works into one style is something that cannot be done by other troubadours at the time. Also, I think all of the influences he had on his art, like the Crusades, like his love for the leader's daughter, and being from France, all combines to create this one interesting composer. It was quite difficult to find many sources on him, but there were some dictionaries and short little excerpts in a few books that I happened to find. Also, there are not many scores for his music except for his popular Kalenda Maya.